Welcome to the Time to Practice podcast. This is a space where we talk about music practice, the ups and downs that young musicians go through related to practice and learning music, and how we as parents, caregivers, and music educators can support the young musicians in our lives, support ourselves, and support each other. My name is Christine Goodner. I'm a music educator, author, and podcaster who has made it my mission to talk about music practice and to support educators and families looking to make home practice more effective and to reduce conflict and frustration in the practice room. I'm glad you're here. This episode is brought to you by the Positive Practice Workbook. This is one of my resources, and it puts into workbook form a process that I take families through in my studio when they come to me and say, help, everything about this is feeling hard. And it's a way to break down the different pieces of practice, look at it from different angles, and figure out where we might try to help make things go in a little more positive direction. You can order this resource on Amazon.com, on bookshop.org, which is a personal favorite of mine, and you can order bulk copies directly from me. Please reach out if you'd like to do that. If that sounds like a good fit for you, please pick up a copy and know that you are helping support the work of this podcast. Well, welcome everyone. I'm excited to welcome back to the podcast this week our expert guest, Barbie Wong, who joins us frequently. And Barbie, thanks for coming back and chatting with us this month.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And this topic was prompted actually by a listener who reached out and asked if I could talk a bit more about the preteen, teen, maybe more intermediate part of practice. And sometimes I think I don't tackle that topic because I feel like, oh, lots of other people are talking about that. I don't need to. But then that feedback made me think, oh, I should do more of that because I also think about a lot of how to support my preteens and teens, especially I think as a teacher, if I've taught them from a young age, things really change and we have to shift our perspective.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that from a few different facets this week. And then if you are listening and you have follow-up questions or things you wished we had talked about related to this topic, or your own questions, maybe Barbie and I can do a follow-up episode about this topic of teens and preteens in a future time she's with us. So please send in any further questions that this episode makes you think about. But the first question I wanted to have us tackle, and maybe Barbie, I'll pass it to you first, and then I can add any thoughts I have as well. But just what kind of support do you notice that preteens, young teens need in your studio? What do you think about as a teacher for the particular kind of support they may need?
Yeah, I think of course things change because they're changing into different people. And I mean the things that they need actually are in some ways very similar. They still need support. You don't want to take away the support. You definitely want to make sure there's still support, you're still checking in, you're still communicating, but you're also wanting to be flexible, wanting to see, what are they thinking about? How are they changing? And so being in tune with how they're changing and how their interests might be changing, how their desire to play different kinds of music, or how they struggle with practice. Maybe they've been great with practice, and then now what's changing is that they struggle with practice because they would rather hang out with their friends. So I think just being open to the changes as they come while really trying to stay present and be there as a support.
I like that a lot. I think what you said just made me think like the what maybe doesn't change a lot, but how we support them and what it looks like as the parent versus other kinds of outside support we might bring in could really change in these years.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, most definitely. It is just, yeah, just being there, and how we support them does change.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll share a few things I was thinking about with preteens and teens than I do with my younger students. And I think one of the big ones is just how to practice. Because if you're young, like we're both come from a Suzuki world, and maybe there's a parent with you in the practice room when you're really young, and then as you get more independent, you might do a few more things on your own, or you may be a little resistant for various reasons to your parent telling you, and it needs to come from inside you a little more. Even if a parent's still there guiding you, it needs to be a little more internally driven, I guess. So I think all the things about how to practice, like how do you structure your practice, how much time you're going to spend on certain things, what things should you do every single day that you practice, and what things maybe could be rotated through if you don't have time to get to every single thing. I think some of those decisions that maybe a grown-up's making for us if they've practiced with us, um, we have to start making on our own. And it reminds me when before I learned how to drive, I would be a passenger to go all sorts of different places. And then when I was like suddenly on my own to drive there, I remember my parents being a little baffled that like, how could you get lost? You drove in the car with us there every single day. But I was like, I wasn't paying attention to where to turn or what was going on. Like my brain could do other things because someone else was in charge of that part of it. And I think practice can be a little bit like that if an adult's in charge telling us exactly what to do. And it's suddenly our job. We might not have ever put any mental attention to that. We might need some guidance.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I love that analogy. Yes. Yeah. Even though they've been present, obviously, during lessons and at home practicing, if you have an adult that's taking care of all those details, they might just feel like, okay, whatever. They're not paying attention to the details. And it is nice. It is nice to help the preteens and the teens really understand why things are done a certain way. Because I have some, and I can tell when I say, oh, we're going to practice this way. And sometimes they give me that look of like, what? This is like, I don't think so. Or I basically this questioning look. And then I realize, oh, okay, they want an explanation. Okay, so we can talk about it. But it's different. If there was a 5-year-old, I'm not going to tell them all these same reasons. But if you have an 11-year-old, a 15-year-old, they want to know why. And that can really help them understand. And then that will really help practice.
Sure. And I think if you understand why, you can apply whatever your teachers told you to other situations where you might need that same strategy. If no one tells you why, it's just like for this one thing, practice this way. It's hard to apply that other places because we don't know when and why to use it. So yeah, I think that's really, really smart. And I think if you're a parent listening, sometimes to like ask your teacher for support on some of these practice things that maybe your child would take your feedback about how to practice when they were younger, however involved you were, and then suddenly they seem resistant to it. It could just be that it needs to be another adult that's telling them. I think one thing that changes is maybe adopting more of an encourager role than a telling you what to do role. There's a balance there to be had as sort of an art form to figure out how much of which your child needs and wants from you. But I think sometimes we can ask our teacher to give some more help on some things that our child no longer would like our input on. So
That is so true. Definitely true.
what would it be helpful for parents and teachers to think about when they're working with a student who's kind of you can just tell something's changed, their development has changed, they're entering this preteen phase. We've talked about some things about practice. What else would you say we could keep in mind? I'll say one for me to kick us off is making sure those preteens and young teens have a social outlet for their music. I think it's great at every age, but I think it starts to become critical and very, very important when we get to this teen phase. If we start to feel like, why aren't they motivated? I think practicing alone at home is not. We're social beings, I think. We're meant to be around our peers when we get into that age range, and they might really need to be around their peers in some form making music. So that's one I thought of.
Oh yeah, that one, as you said, it is critical, and it's. I guess two things come to mind. Number one is this is why I'm here today. The reason why I continue making music is because in my teen years, not only did I have group lessons, but I had a yearly summer camp that I went to, and I got to hang out with other 13 and 14 and 15-year olds, and it was a very awkward stage in life, but because I was hanging out with these people who were also making music, who were also practicing, who also at least seemed to care about, the making music together, it really got me interested. And once I went to summer camp, it was like a light switch. My parents no longer had to tell me to practice. I just practiced. And so if we can get kids to go to summer camps or have some sort of group lesson experience or ensemble experience where they make friends, where they're actually connecting with these people, then practice just becomes so much easier.
Yes, I think we can link up social time and music making
Yeah.
combo is just
Yeah.
kind of magic for keeping people engaged. That's why, I mean, what I love about my music life is all the people I get into engage with, along with the music that we make or talk about or work
Yes.
on. It's just a really special thing.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And then the second thought is that because of my experience and then also all this research I've done on how to motivate kids to practice, I've actually required my own music studio to have group lessons. Like all of my students have to have group lessons. And sometimes parents when they come into the studio they'll wonder why. And I say, look, this is the antidote. Like once your child starts to practice, you might have a honeymoon period, but eventually it's going to get hard. And so having group lessons ensures that your child will have some part of music that they enjoy, and especially in the preteen teen ages, like that's vital. There's like perhaps like less than 1% of people that I've talked to. I don't know about you, Christine, who have said, "Oh, I was always motivated to practice my entire life." I mean, probably heard this from like two people ever, and like we've talked to, I'm sure, like we've reached thousands of people collectively. I mean, and so really, like having those group lesson experiences is really critical.
Absolutely. And when I've done interviews with a lot of musicians and asked them, did you always like to practice? I feel like it is a very small percentage that absolutely like to practice. And of the people who said, yes, I always like to practice, I never had a problem with them. A lot of those people started in a school program where they were practicing with peers from the start. And again, you might be listening and be like, oh no, I just love to practice alone. It felt like a puzzle to solve and I loved it from the start. And there are people legitimately who feel that way. But a lot of people, it's when they get the social component in, that's when they start to feel that way, at least to have some piece that's with other people. So I think that's huge. And as parents, we can put our children in situations like look for opportunities, whether it's a camp, whether it's, is there an opportunity at school, in our community and so on, that our child could get connected with other kids socially playing music. I think that's just such great motivation. I think another thing that I think about is having a piece of music. It could be assigned by the teacher. It could be something that the teacher never hears, but having some piece of music that the student cannot wait to play on their instrument and that they will like sit at the piano or pick up their violin or whatever instrument they play because they want to play that piece of music. And I think I really want students of all ages, but I think especially when we get to that preteen teen year and we want them to have their own motivation and their own ownership, making sure does my child or my student have something they love to play? And if the teacher's not assigning it, then I think it's a good project to figure out what are you excited about playing? Is there video game music, movie music, pop music, whatever it is? Again, maybe your teacher, isn't interested in working on that in the lesson, and that's totally fair because there's lots to do in a short amount of time. But I think it's important for students to have that, and they can do it as a, their hobby part of playing their instrument. But having that spark of like, oh, I love playing this piece is really important to me for my students that age.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, I love that. That makes so much sense because that also allows them, because right now they're trying to figure out their identities and they're trying things out, and so it allows them to have that thing that they care about that might be just uniquely for them. And I think to tag on to that, I also think it's important for us to think far in the future, like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what do we want our child to be doing? Like, what do we want these students to be doing in terms of music? We, of course, and I get this idea from Merlin Thompson, this idea of like, we
Mm-hmm.
want them, of course, to be able to find music on their own. Hopefully at some point they're going to be someplace, and if they don't have music lessons, and even if they do, that they are the ones who are driving the repertoire selection. And so I think letting them choose music on their own now is wonderful. It's a great way for them to practice what it's going to be like, hopefully, when they're, you know, out of the house and they're able to make music by themselves and then they're exploring whatever music that they enjoy.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's very important. And a lot of professionals in other fields will tell me they play an instrument to relax or decompress, or that's how they deal with the stress of the world as they go play their piano or whatever instrument they play. And so I think giving students a taste of that early on, I mean, the world's a stressful place. It's really good to have outlets that feel therapeutic and like you connect to yourself and feel like yourself. And I think it's a gift if we can help those young teens find that. So it becomes a habit for them. And then I think I alluded to this a little bit, but I think just also making sure there's some ownership. If it feels like I'm doing this to make my parents happy or even my teacher happy or anything else, that can be fine to have some of that. But if that's all that's driving music practice, I think at some point I see some like rebellion against lessons. And so we want to give them some feeling of this is for me. I think choosing music, a piece of music at a time, could be a piece of that for students. The instrument is for them and part of what they like or part of their identity. And some of the things we talked about, like going to a summer camp and being like, oh, I found my people, this is, I have to go back next year. Those kinds of things definitely build into that as well. Do you have any ideas of or thoughts, Barbie, about how you help preteens develop some ownership over their playing?
Yes, I actually do. I actually created a program, and it's this young artist program where they can start thinking about different things that they want to do. It's for high schoolers, but I'm trying to create one for the middle school ages as well. But it's basically they choose something that they want to focus on during their high school years. So it could be something like community service where they go to rest homes and play music, and something where they use music as a gift to share with other people, or maybe they want to do improvisation and composition, and so they focus on that. And so music lessons become not just we're going to learn the repertoire and the technique and sight reading and theory, but oh, let's work on this bigger project. Let's work on this thing that you have chosen. And it could be a number of things. And when I tell teachers about this, because a lot of teachers will say, well, I don't know how to teach improv. It's like, don't offer that. Offer things that you are able to offer. Like I personally am not going to offer improv for these teenagers, but I am very happy to offer, like, let's look into pop music and reading lead sheets. And, if you want to do some jazz, and let's check that out. Or if you want to look into like creating your own summer camp, and how would you do that? Because I've helped I have a child who did a bunch of summer camps that we had in our home. So I think giving teens and preteens these ideas of like, oh, music can go beyond. It doesn't just have to be I'm practicing each week, but it can be these bigger projects where we can help others or we can explore other realms. I think that can really help them take ownership.
I think that's a beautiful example. Yeah, I like that a lot. I've been thinking about that for my high schoolers as well. And I think I've been thinking about it for seniors, but I like your idea to start from thinking earlier in high school and thinking about that. That's a great idea. I wanted to cap our conversation off today because we're both parents and we both have kids that have, lived through the teen years and who we've parented through the teen years. What do you feel like you learned as a parent? And it could be something we've already talked about, but what have you learned as a parent that helping your kids navigate this? I think specifically related to music and staying involved in music.
Yeah, I think well, first of all, what's interesting is actually I still have two teens, so they have not exited the system, but they're both off to college. And in terms of supporting them, I think about how important it is that our presence is still felt. I remember talking to a teacher once who talked about how, she said she was really independent during her teen years. And she just said, I just took off with all of my making and it was great. My parents really weren't involved. And later on, I asked her, I said, well, do you feel like perhaps you might have wanted a little bit more parental involvement or even like acknowledgement or asking you how you were? And she said, yeah, that would have been nice. So I think sometimes as parents, the teenagers can be moody. They don't always have to be, they can give you looks or, grunts or sighs. But at the end of the day, they still want you to be there. And so I think sometimes just letting that kind of pass you by and realize, okay, they're just in a bad mood now, but they still want us and they still want us present. And that's what I try to do with my own kids is I kept checking in on them. My daughter she actually was in high school during COVID, which was tough. And so she practiced her cello in her room and did all of her lessons in her room. So I saw nothing for several years, but I would keep checking in. Oh, how was it? Oh, let's watch these videos together because I think these cellists are great. So finding ways to connect that are a little bit less pressure filled for the teens, but just letting them know I'm still there and I support you and I care about you and I want to know more about your involvement with music. That can really help.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that so much. I think a lot, especially later high school, I feel like my role switched a lot to like logistics. How do I get them the materials they need, the clothing they need? What my kids are into musical theater, and there's a lot of that. And then I think encouragement and being present, or that's the other thing I think I just really learned to just show up to all the things. If there was a volunteer opportunity, I would just be in the background and not be intrusive, but just like I'm here, if you need something, I'm here, but also I'm just cheering you on and I'm happy to, you know, be seeing you performing, whatever it is, working hard. I really, I think we can't say that enough. And I did get some like, oh, you just have to say that because you're my mom. And, the eye rolls that you're talking about.
Yes.
But also, I could see over time that actually it really was appreciated because my instinct was like, oh, I should just kind of not be here anymore. And I think that's the opposite of what they need. And I think in some ways, developmentally, they need to see that even if they feel indifferent, we're like, I'm not put off by that. I'm still here for you. If you need me, I'm here. And I think if you're a parent listening, just know it matters, even if they don't tell you that you're there. And I think we can just be that constant presence. And I think erring on the side of encouragement. And I love to hear you play. I love to see they're making time for this, although you're busy, all those things. Can't say how important that is enough in my perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, thank you all for being here and listening. If this prompts further questions for you and you would love us to address this topic again in the future, please do reach out. You can let us know what you'd like to hear as a follow up to this topic. It's such a great topic. I think we could make each little segment of this a longer podcast. So I hope we will talk about it in the future. And thanks again, Barbie, for joining us this week.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Would love to hear what you took away from this episode and what you tried or what this reminded you of that you put back into your practice this week. You can send me an email, Christine@SuzukiTriangle.com, or you can reach out to me in Instagram @Suzuki Triangle is my handle there. And Barbie can be found on Instagram @Barbie Wong Music. You can also find her website, barbiewong.com. And join us if you'd like to check out our small community that we host, which is a really vibrant group of people supporting practice for their own students and children at barbiewong.com/community if you'd like to connect with Barbie and I both there. With that, time to practice, community. So grateful for you to be with us this week. Wishing you a good week of practice ahead with lots of joy making music in your life. Take good care.